Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you very much for joining Understanding Gita for 18 days. And also, we will be starting our first chapter today, which is Observing the Armies on the Battlefield of Kurukshetra. Now, I will give a short description of how the battle started and everything. But before we do that, we will just take blessings from our gurus and acharyas so that we are able to get this knowledge get this knowledge of the prasad easily for us, and also we progress faster in devotional service. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातान् सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखावतांश्च नमः। ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। All of you, please raise your hand. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranams to everyone. Thank you very much. Welcome all of you for the 18 days of understanding Bhagavad Gita in 18 days. And we will be starting our first session with observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And before we begin our journey with the chapter, we will have a little bit of a prelude of what we are going to learn today. And all our teachings are based on the teachings of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And he is the founder Acharya of ISKCON, which is International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And to begin with, I would like to just give a small instruction. If we will be starting the session now, and it will be about approximately 1 hour that we will continuously do the slides. There will be times that we will be taking questions. That's if need arises, which is very rare. But apart from that, I would request all of you, all the devotees, please make a habit of or keep a paper and a pen handy with you, so that if at all there is any questions that you get, please make a note of it, because the questions will be taken at the end of the session. So I'd request once again, please keep a paper and a pen handy so that you can write and make a note of all the questions that you get. And if you wish to, you can take notes of the sessions, because these are very important lessons that's spoken by Sri Krishna himself. So you can take notes. Also, I would like to inform that we will be sharing the PowerPoint slides for your information. It is all, it's going to be uploaded into a drive, and I will be sharing the drive link so that you can see and you can revisit the PowerPoint presentation. And also the YouTube videos will be uploaded online, so you can revisit the class once again. Thank you very much all. Hare Krishna. Sorry about that. I had to start the recordings. Just give me 1 minute. Yes, it started to record. Okay, to begin with, since we will be learning about Bhagavad Gita, I would like to give a very short history about how exactly the whole, how exactly we need to accept Bhagavad Gita, we need to receive it first. So, Bhagavad Gita was actually spoken by Sri Krishna himself, and this is a Vedic wisdom which is passed through oral reception. When we say oral reception, it means that it came through the sound vibration from many, many centuries. And now, for generations, generation to generation, it was passed on through speech. That is, by singing the Gita, is what it came through generations. But until it was written, when the Kali Yuga started, there was a depreciation, or there was the quality of memory. When it stopped having a better quality of memory, that's when, as per the instruction of Sri Krishna, Srila Vyasadeva, who was empowered by Sri Krishna himself, wrote this Bhagavad Gita and he penned it down. It was about 5,000 years ago that Srila Vyasadeva wrote this Bhagavad Gita. Otherwise, earlier it was spoken by Sri Krishna himself, and we will be recording many histories how this particular science was already given to sun god Vivaswan. All of this also will be visited soon. But for now, all we need to understand is that Bhagavad Gita is a Bhagavad Gita is a song of God, which is Bhagavat. Bhagavat means Bhagavan himself, and Gita means song. So, song of the God. And as of like we mentioned, that this is passed on through Srila Vyasadeva. He is a guru himself, and through him it came down through centuries. And now we are discussing about how it came to through Srila Prabhupada to us, and where we are following the Gaudiya Vaishnava Parampara, and here we got this knowledge through the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu re-established this, and hence we are seeing our Guru Parampara over here. We have Srila Prabhupada and his Guru, which is Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and also Jagannath Das Babaji Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaja, and also we have Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakura, and also we have Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. So the parampara goes on like that to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and this is Sri Nityananda Prabhu. And in order to preserve this timeless wisdom for eternity, Lord Krishna created the chain of spiritual masters who have passed it to our hands. So, this particular knowledge, we just didn't, this was just not written in the story form or something. Actually, Krishna himself had given this, and Krishna empowered Srila Vyasadeva to write this wisdom, and he penned it down. And now, after writing this, it has come through Gaudiya Parampara, where we have Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who has given this book, which is as it is. So you might see that there are so many commentaries about the Bhagavad Gita. There are like many commentaries about Bhagavad Gita, but Srila Prabhupada, what he did was he wrote the Bhagavad Gita in the mood how Sri Krishna wanted it to be given, and it's very important that we read it from the parampara, because when a devotee tells that this is exactly what Sri Krishna wanted it to be pronounced, that's the perfect science. So we will read a bit about our Srila Prabhupada, who is the founder Acharya of ISKCON, because it's important for us to know how Srila Prabhupada established ISKCON, and also how he was inspired, and how he was inspired from childhood to spread the word of Krishna. So here we see that when Srila Prabhupada, when he was only about 5 years old, he wanted to organize a Jagannath festival, that is the cart festival of Jagannath, where Srila Prabhupada would organize with little people, that is with his little friends. He used to take his neighborhood friends, and with all his playmates. You know, when we are small, we are busy we are busy playing games and many other things. But Srila Prabhupada was so much interested as a small child. He was so inspired, but he was already a small devotee as a child, that he used to celebrate card festivals with his friends. And also, Srila Prabhupada carried out his instructions, that is, his guru's instruction, that is Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura's instruction. And as per his spiritual master, he decided to travel to the Americas. So, as per Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura, he got his instruction from him, where he's instructed his disciples. He actually instructed all his disciples, but specifically he had informed Srila Prabhupada to go to the west and take the instructions and establish the ISKCON, or the instructions of Sri Krishna in the west. So here we see Srila Prabhupada working out how to go to the west, and he's discussing about how to move to the west, and he's establishing. And we see that here he is next to the Jaladuta, that is the ship, the cargo ship that he had taken to move to the west. He took many troubles so that all of us can sit in front of our computers and see this, not receive this knowledge so easily. But for him, he did a lot of hard work, where at the age of 69 he had to go to the west and to preach. He took this Jaladuta, which is a cargo ship. Many of us would feel difficult to take a ship at 69 because you would feel dizzy, but he got two heart attacks. Krishna protected him while he was going to in Jaladuta, where he got two heart attacks, but still he was rescued. And when he moved to the west, he arrived first in the USA. And here we see that he's also spread Krishna consciousness in Russia. And we see that Srila Prabhupada did many congregations together. He made many disciples. Do you see the little disciples over here? We had little disciples who were inspired by him and who were taking inspiration from Srila Prabhupada. And there are a lot of Sankirtan that was performed across the globe. And you see Srila Prabhupada been even now it's so good to hear that he established more than 200 temples across the globe. And also he came up with many books. While he was in US, in 10 years he wrote more than 200 books. 200 publications were released. And also the most important book that we are reading today, which is Bhagavad Gita as it is, this was also written and this was published. And also there were more than 200 CDs that were released while he was in the US. So he wrote several books in his entire lifetime. And I would like to show a short video about how he traveled across the globe and established this, the ISKCON. Yeah. Sorry, I will have to show a video. Let me just pull up the video. Just give me a minute. Okay, the video will be coming up shortly. Sure. So I was just saying that Srila Prabhupada did a lot of hard work to establish ISKCON. Yes, please go ahead with the video. Yeah. Oh, but okay. Yeah, we can maximize. Volume higher. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, everyone. So that was the Srila Prabhupada's travel across the globe several times. Timeline of how he traveled from one place to another place to establish temples and establish devotees and congregation to bring the congregation front. And I would like to share the presentation again. Just give me one moment. Yes. So now we are receiving this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita through ISKCON Mangaluru, and this is very beautiful deities from ISKCON Mangaluru. It's located in the Coconut Garden near the toll gate of Kadri, which is in Mangalore, Karnataka. And I'm sure all of you have visited the site, which is coming up, where right now the temple location is already pinned, and you can visit the place. And also, you should visit the website where there are a lot of updates given about the temple. And this temple is actually right now taken care, or the president of the temple right now is His Grace Namanishta Das Prabhu, who is located in ISKCON Mangaluru, who is helping us all to receive this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. There are more than 1 lakh participants who are registering per month, and every month we have more than 1 lakh registrations for in Bhagavad Gita, and this knowledge is shared with everybody, which is the ancient shastras, which is required for us for spiritual progress. Now, I would like to begin this Bhagavad Gita with a very, very short story. And this is a very sweet story about Shri Narada Muni. Here we go, you have Narada Muni, and also we have a cobbler. This is about a cobbler and also about a Brahmin. So, what is it about a story about a cobbler and a Brahmin and Srila Narada Muni? So, this is one day what happened is Srila Narada Muni was traveling to different places. You know, Narada Muni is actually having this benediction that he can travel from any place to any place within few seconds. So he was traveling through the planets, and he was singing the glories of Lord Narayana. You know, Srila Narada Muni always says Narayana, Narayana. So he keeps traveling everywhere. So while he was traveling once, during his travel, he saw that there is a Brahmana who was taking a bath near the river. And Narada Muni, when he met the Brahmana, he told, "Dear Narada Muni, are you going to meet the Lord?" Then Narada Muni said, "Yes, I will be meeting the Lord very soon." Then, please do a small favor. Please, can you ask the Lord when I am going to join the Lord in the spiritual world? Then it will be very soon, but I still want to know only from the Lord. If you see over here, Brahmana is so sure that he will meet the Lord very soon. He's so confident that I will meet the Lord soon. And so, can you just tell me how soon will I be meeting? Then Narada Muni said, "All right, I will ask the Lord." Then later, after some time, Narada Muni passed through a humble cobbler who was repairing his shoes on the roadside. Then, as soon as he saw Narada Muni, he said, "All glories to Narada Muni." Then, immediately, he said, "Dear Narada Muni, if you're going to meet the Lord, are you going to meet the Lord?" He asked. Then he said, "Yes, I will be meeting the Lord very soon." Then the cobbler requested, "When you meet the Lord, please ask the Lord if after how many more lives will I be going to the spiritual world, as I'm tired of living in this material world." Now, if you see, there are two terms that we just saw. One is the spiritual world. Another one is the material world. So we have something called a spiritual and the material world. Wherever we are living right now is the material world, and spiritual world is where Narayana, Krishna, and Vaikuntha planets are. So, okay, sure, I will, when I go to meet the Lord, sure, certainly I will ask the Lord when you will be joining him in the spiritual world. Then Narada Muni goes to the spiritual world and reaches the place of Narayana. The Lord receives him with honor and affection. So when he meets Lord Narayana, he is receiving him with full affection. Then he said, "How are you, dear Narada? Is there anything I can do for you?" That's what Lord Vishnu inquired. That's when, um, yeah, no, sorry, I think something is showing up over here. Yes. So Narada told the Lord what Brahman and the cobbler wanted to know the Lord. So he asked, what did they inquire about? So Narada Muni actually was thinking about it, and he asked what happened after that. Then the Brahmin will come back to me after 100 lives. So when Narada Muni inquired, what happens with the cobbler and about the Brahmin, please tell me. So he said, the Brahmin will take 100 lives and the cobbler will come back to me after finishing this life only. They will ask you what I was doing. So Krishna was sure that the moment you tell the cobbler or to the Brahmana that I will be coming back in one life or I will be coming back in 100 lives, he was like, maybe they will ask you what I was doing. So they will ask you what I was doing. You tell them that I was threading an elephant through the eye of the needle. On seeing their reaction, you will understand everything. Because Narada Muni was thinking, why is Krishna telling that the Brahmana will take 100 lives and the cobbler will take only one life? How is that possible? Narada Muni was thinking. So that's why Sri Krishna gave a clue that as soon as you tell them that I was passing I was passing an elephant through the eye of a needle, you will get to know. That's when Narada Muni comes back immediately. And first thing is he meets the Brahmana and he says, "Oh Brahmana, the Lord said that you will see him after 100 lives." He told like that. Then later, I don't believe you even. So immediately Brahmana got a bit agitated and he said, "I don't believe you even saw the Lord. Tell me what the Lord was doing." That's when Narada Muni said, Lord was threading an elephant through the eye of the needle. Then the Brahmana was like, impossible. How can anyone thread an elephant through the eye of the needle? You never met the Lord and you are cheating me by saying imaginary things. So he didn't believe in Narada Muni. So here there is a matter of belief and faith that's coming into picture. Then what happened? Narada Muni noticed his reaction and then went to meet the cobbler. So whenever you're meeting gurus like Narada Muni, or whenever you're meeting a guru, whatever they are saying, you should listen in 100% faith, because when you have faith, you will know what exactly is the truth. Then what happened? Then he said, "Oh, cobbler, you will see the Lord after finishing this life only." Sorry about that. So the cobbler said, "My Lord is very merciful. What was the Lord doing when you saw him?" Is what cobbler said. When then the Narada Muni replied, "The Lord was threading an elephant through the eye of the needle." So he said, "Wonderful, wonderful." He was imagining that how the Lord could thread an elephant through the needle, and he was like, "Wonderful." He was in ecstasy to hear about this. Then he said, "Do you actually believe this?" Narada Muni wanted to reconfirm how is he able to believe this? And he said, then immediately he said, "Of course, of course, look at this big banyan tree. It comes from a small seed. If such a big tree can come from such a small seed, then the Lord can easily put an elephant through the eye of the needle." See, this plant that is a banyan tree where he's sitting under, it's coming from such a small it's coming from such small seeds. As soon as we throw these seeds on the ground, it turns into a small plant and then a bigger, and then it turns into such a huge banyan tree which he was sitting under. So when the Lord can make such a big tree out of such a small seed, of course the Lord can pass the elephant through the eye of the needle. And then, seeing the difference between the faith of the Brahmana and also the cobbler, Narad Muni understood why they had to be rewarded differently. So, we need to know that Krishna knows everything. Krishna is always watching us. He doesn't leave us even for a single second. He's always seeing what we are doing. We have to believe and have faith that whatever Guru is telling, we have to accept that and think that he is always watching us and helping us. So the moral is that we should, so this is called as the faith. There is a reason behind the belief. If Krishna can put a large tree within so many little seeds, is it so astounding that he is keeping all the planetary system floating in the space? See, he's keeping so many planetary systems and everything floating. He's holding everything together. So Srila Prabhupada is saying it is simply meant for the devotees. They can understand. The non-devotees cannot understand. They will say, oh, these are all bluffs. So we have to understand that whenever we are receiving the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita or anything regarding the scriptures, we should have 100% faith. When we have faith, automatically Bhagavad Gita will be heard very nicely. We can hear Bhagavad Gita very nicely and we'll be able to understand it so well. Now, so what is Bhagavad Gita? Why do we need to learn Bhagavad Gita? Let us learn about that. So this is a, sorry about that. So this is a Gita Upanishad. That is, the Bhagavad Gita should be taken in the spirit of devotion, where one should think that this is actually very much equal to. This is like he is equal to Krishna himself. When we are receiving the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, we should think that okay, this is the Guru who is giving it to me, but Guru is so merciful that he is giving the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to me, and he is equal to Krishna. That's how we need to treat. And also, we should not think that Krishna is an ordinary personality or even very great personality. Some people reject that they, oh, you know what, Krishna is just a great personality. No, Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. And this is what all our acharyas have told. And we have to have 100% faith in this. And when we have 100% faith in this, we'll be able to receive this Bhagavad Gita very nicely. And additionally, Bhagavad Gita is the perfect theistic science where because it is given by Sri Krishna. If somebody has written just any other book in the material world, it's just a story, but this is given by God, Sri Krishna. So we have to believe that all his instructions have to be followed very nicely. And how to study Bhagavad Gita? So we have to study Bhagavad Gita very scrutinizingly. Now, what do you mean by scrutinizingly? It means that when I'm reading it, I should understand how to understand this science and how do I get the logic of how to apply it in my real life. So we need to understand all this while we are studying. So, with the help of the devotees of Krishna and also without personally motivated interpretations, I should not think, oh, maybe Krishna told like this, maybe Krishna told like this. I should not have any motivated sense from myself. I will start applying for all my mistakes. Okay, maybe this applies to Bhagavad Gita. No, we should apply the way the Guru is explaining, we should apply in those lines. And also in lines with however Guru is giving an example, we should understand in the same sense. And also what is the benefit of me understanding this Bhagavad Gita? So by understanding this Bhagavad Gita, this is a Vedic wisdom. This is a Vedic wisdom coming from the spiritual world. So spiritual world is the happiest place all the time. So when I'm talking about spiritual world, it's always happy. Over here we have sadness and happy, but we don't have such sadness and happy there. We're always happy in the spiritual world. So this is coming from Krishna and it's actually having a lot of benefits. And it contains other scriptures also, and it's not found anywhere else, that we have it only over here. And also this is called as actually there are so many Upanishads, lots and lots of Upanishads are there, but this is the Gita Upanishad. This is coming straight from Krishna's lotus mouth. So when it's coming from straight from Krishna's lotus mouth, it is actually the perfect science. So it should be accepted as it's given by Krishna. The way Krishna says you need to do like this, we need to understand only like that. And we need to be very submissive, very important. Remember, we just heard the story of faith. When we talk about story of faith, it means that I need to understand the way it is given to me by Krishna and the Guru. I need to think it is a prasadam that I'm getting from Krishna, and I need to accept it. For example, I mean, I know that you might ask how exactly I should understand. For example, imagine you have bought a new car. Okay, see in the picture we have got a new car, a red beautiful car. So like that, imagine you have a new car with you. When you buy a new car, you also receive a small booklet, a small manual along with that. It'll have, you know what, when you turn right, the car will go right. When you turn left, the car will go left. And it has four wheels. All these details are mentioned in this manual. So when you read the manual, you'll know how to use this car. In the same way, Krishna has given us this body, Krishna has given us this mind, eyes, hands, legs, mouth, head, brain, intelligence, all the senses, and all the working senses. All of this is given to us by Krishna. And when Krishna gives us this, he also told, because you have got all of this, I also will give you Bhagavad Gita. So that when you read this Bhagavad Gita, you can come to my spiritual world permanently. So he is telling you how to use this body, how to use this brain, and how to use this senses, working senses, and everything. I'll teach you all of this in future, what is working senses and everything. So all of this is given by Krishna. He'll tell you how to use this mind and senses in the service of Krishna. So what is Gita? It's a vast book. You can't read it in one shot. You'll have to revisit our classes many times so that you can understand in a systematic way. So when we are reading Bhagavad Gita, we should do a systematic study of Gita. It takes a lot of time. It takes more than a year for us to understand. But what are we doing now? We have just given essence or the summary of this Bhagavad Gita, so that what you can do is you can listen to our Bhagavad Gita and you will have some thoughts between Krishna and Arjuna, the speech between Krishna and Arjuna, and you can focus on the class for 18 days. Once you finish the class for 18 days, when you visit like couple of times Bhagavad Gita, we'll go into advanced Gita where you learn better and you'll be able to understand better. Because once when we read, it is not easy for us to understand. This is coming from Krishna himself, right? So it's a bit difficult. We can't read it in 18 days. It's going to take longer. But still stay with us. We have a lot of nice plans for you to understand Bhagavad Gita. So what is the objective? The objective is to prepare one for deeper study of Gita. So this 18 days that we are going to go through, we are going to be preparing how to read Bhagavad Gita nicely. And this is written by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Now, before I go into Bhagavad Gita, I want to introduce you to the number of chapters. Where in the first 6 chapters, we have Karma Yoga. So, Karma Yoga is in the first 6 chapters. And then we have something called as Bhakti Yoga in the 6th to 12th chapter. And one important thing that we have is this entire Bhagavad Gita is coined like it's a jewel where bhakti is in the middle, where remember in the box we have the most important part, that is the jewelry which is kept inside the box, that is the jewel. And we have in the first 6 chapters Karma Yoga, like a box, like a sandwich or a jewel box where you have enclosure. And the first 6 chapters are Karma Yoga, last 6 chapters are Jnana Yoga, and the middle 6 chapters are called Bhakti Yoga. And then so acharyas, our just like the jewel or the diamond is in the jewel box, Bhakti Yoga is in the middle 6 chapters. So acharyas give the following reasons as to why Bhakti Yoga is in the middle of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, where bhakti is the most important thing. It's the rahasya or the treasure. The treasure is kept in the middle as a secret. It's hidden inside the secret. And bhakti is the essence of all the scriptures. And we will see in the 15th chapter bhakti, 15th chapter, it is called as Sarvasya Chaham Hridi Sannivishto. We get this shloka. I don't want to recite now because we will get it in 15th chapter. And also karma and jnana are good as lifeless and dead without bhakti. So when we are doing bhakti, we need to have jnana and also we need to have karma yoga. Both of them are also required for us. And hence they are surrounded by both. So when we are doing bhakti, we also need karma yoga and also jnana yoga. That's why Krishna has given this entire package of how to use our body. Generally, we do not disclose anything with secret and anyone until and unless we become intimate. So, hence, out of respect and to understand better, we need to have faith, 100% faith in Krishna. And with this 100% faith, we will venture into Bhagavad Gita. So, the Bhagavad Gita is actually called, is compared to a jewel box. I will ask this analogy, the analogy of understanding or an example of understanding Bhagavad Gita, all the 18 chapters and its jewelry box, how it is kept securely. Now, in Bhagavad Gita, I'm learning this book. What does this manual have? This manual should have something that is when we are saying it's systematic. What is the system it's following? We need to understand that. It's following. It has 5 topics. What are the 5 topics? So this Bhagavad Gita explains about Ishvara. Ishvara is the Krishna himself, and also it talks about Jiva. Jiva is the in our body. We also our body, and also we have our soul, our consciousness, our mind, intelligence. All of this is also Jiva. And also Kala means the time element. And also it shows Prakriti, that is how we are influenced, how are we performing our work, who is performing our work. And also Karma, that the one where we are able to do our job, what kind of work, whether we are doing good or bad, what is the perfect work, all this is defined in Karma. So these are the 5 topics of Bhagavad Gita. I will be asking you at the end of the session, what are the 5 topics of Bhagavad Gita? Please make a note of this, and also please write it down so that you remember. These are the 5 important topics of Bhagavad Gita that we will be learning in the next 18 days. So what are they? Ishvara, Jiva, Kala, Prakriti, Karma. Ishvara, Kala, Jiva, Prakriti, Karma. So we will be asking about this question once again. These are the 5 important topics of Bhagavad Gita. Now, apart from this, Bhagavad Gita is divided into, Bhagavad Gita has 700 verses. So, who has spoken these 700 verses? In these 700 verses, Lord Krishna himself has spoken 574 verses, and Arjuna has spoken 84 verses, and Sanjaya has spoken 41 verses, and Dhritarashtra only the first and the important words that we will be reading about. So, before we venture into Bhagavad Gita, we will understand very little part of it on how this Bhagavad Gita started. Krishna started to impart to Arjuna. Now, actually, before the war could begin, there is a very short story about how it started. Now, we had two clans, that is, we have Kurus, that is, we have Pandavas, and Kauravas, who were cousins. They were both cousins. So, there was a time when the cousins had broken into a war, and before they broke into a war, the cousins, that is Pandavas' sons, and also Dhritarashtra's sons. Both of them are very, as in Dhritarashtra and Pandava were actually born to the same kingdom, and they were cousins. Now, actually, the kingdom should be belonging to the Pandavas, but with a lot of cheat and lot of Dhritarashtra's sons had taken over the kingdom from Pandavas. Now, this was not correct, but however, Pandavas were very tolerant and they were trying to cooperate and they tried to be nice with them, and because they are their cousins. Finally, because of their goodness, Kauravas took a lot of disadvantage and they tried to cheat them, they tried to kill them, they did a lot of wrong things, which we will be seeing in the chapter. And finally, they broke into a war. So when they broke into a war, even before they could break into a war, Krishna also tried as a last resort to somehow resolve this entire thing. But still, Duryodhana, who is son of Dhritarashtra, was not happy with this and he didn't want to go ahead with any compromise. So we'll see how the story begins. I think that's a very short summary of what happened in the past. So this is just to understand, this is a fratricidal war between the two cousins, fratricidal war, which is between Pandavas and Kauravas, or the sons of Dhritarashtra. Now, the first shloka will begin. This is the very important shloka that we start with, and this is the only shloka that Dhritarashtra has spoken to Sanjaya. Dhritarashtra's questions and Duryodhana's answers or actions are described over here. Who would like to recite the shloka? Any one of you, would you like to recite the shloka? Can raise your hand. Shashi, unmute yourself. You can recite the shloka if you wish to.
धृतराष्ट्र युवाक धर्मक्षेत्र कुरुक्षेत्र संव्राते युवस्तव मामका पांडव काव्य की अरुक्वत Sanjaya.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Anyone else would like to recite? Kavin?
Okay. Dhritarashtra uvacha dharmakshetre kurukshetre samavetaayuyuttavaha mamakah pandavaschaiva yamakurvata Sanjaya.
Thank you, Kavin. Please can you read the translation also?
Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjaya, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the palace of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what did they do?
Haribol. Thank you very much. So, chapter 1 is repeatedly presented in the following two themes. There are two themes of the chapter 1. So, the Lord's protection, that is how Krishna protects his devotees. So, devotees who surrender to the Lord's protection are assured for victory. So, there are two themes over here. One is how Lord Krishna's devotees are protected regardless of their material odds. Even if you have nothing with you, how you can win the war if you are with Krishna. This is what is emphasized in the first chapter. And the other theme that we have is Lord as an intimate servant. Lord is the most intimate servant. We should always remember this. We will see how Lord is an intimate servant. And also Bhagavad Gita introduces Krishna, the supreme personality of Godhead, as the intimate servant of his devotees. If you remember, here Krishna is a charioteer. He is a charioteer and he is helping Arjuna as a charioteer, which means even he becomes a devotee's servant if you become a very great devotee to Krishna. So he is so merciful. Krishna is very, very merciful. These are the two things that we need to understand, that even if I don't have anything materially, Krishna will everything, and he will help us. He's merciful that he will help us, and even if we don't have anything with us. So these are the two themes. And the first shloka goes as Dhritarashtra uvacha dharmakshetre kurukshetre samavetayoyotsavaha mamakaha pandavaschaiva kimma kurvata sanjaya. So Dhritarashtra is asking, what exactly are my sons and Pandu's sons doing in the war? They have assembled there. What are they doing? So let us understand this shloka better. In this shloka, there are certain things which are very important, which is defined. Let's understand this better. What is he saying? Dharma kshetre. That is, Dharma kshetra is like a pure milk. Dharma kshetra is a very, very holy place. It's a holy place where it's like a pure milk. And Mamakaha Pandavas. So there he's curdled the entire place. So here it's saying Kurukshetra is a sacred place of pilgrimage from time immemorial. Actually, Kurukshetra is a place where people were performing a lot of a lot of yagya and anything holy that they need to do. They used to perform in this place, and they used to even this place is even holy for the heavenly planets. People from the denizens, that is the heavenly planets, also used to come down to this place, which if they want to perform anything that is sacred. And also he is using the word mamakaha. Mamakaha means my side, that is my sons and Pandava's sons. So he is already separating them like a milk and a curd. And the supreme personality of Godhead is that is Dhritarashtra refers only to his sons as Kurus and not Pandava's sons. Actually, Pandu's sons and the sons of Kurus, both of them are supposed to be Kurus, but he separated them. How he has separated? Like in this picture, you see that the water and the milk, or the part, the very very curdled part is removed over here. So that's how he separated. Okay, they are not my sons, like that. So once you remove it, it becomes kimma kurvata. What are they doing over there is what he's asking. So actually the supreme personality of Godhead is also present on Pandava's side. That is the most important thing that they require. And also Pandavas are actually virtuous to have this kingdom. They are supposed to be the real people who should be having this particular place. And Dhritarashtra is now fearful. So we have to understand in this shloka that he is scared. He's so fearful that maybe they may compromise and they will leave. He's thinking maybe they will compromise and they'll go away because this is a Kurukshetra. And also one very important thing we have to understand is, like the way he has informed over here, Srila Prabhupada also gives another analogy. He says wherever we have this particular field, the paddy field, we have weeds also. So the way Dhritarashtra has been weeding out Pandavas and he's removing them like they are somebody outside, in the same way, because it is a Kurukshetra, maybe I will be able to win the war, is what he's thinking. But actually, since Krishna is there and Dharma is always there whenever Krishna is there, we have to understand like that, and he will weed out Kurus from there. So the winning team will be only Kurus, is what we need to understand. That is the Pandavas, which is Kurus, and the Pandavas will be winning. Now Dhritarashtra's inquiry shows two things. That is a fear of concerns. What is it? Kurukshetra and the Dharmakshetra. So it is a holy place and only the Dharma will win. Mamakaha, which we just understood, that what my sons are doing, and Pandavas are the righteous warriors to have this particular place. Now Duryodhana's diplomacy is explained in the third shloka. Duryodhana is very very diplomatic. He is very very diplomatic. In simple words for you to understand, it's like he's very smart. So what is he saying? Does anyone wants to recite the shloka?
Hiranya.
Hiran Hiranya Hiranya. Would you like to recite?
Ma'am, I don't know. Ma'am, I don't know this sloka, but I was to do.
Okay, no problem, Hiranya. No worries. Nischala, would you like to recite?
Which one, ma'am?
Sure, Mataji. पश्यैतां पाण्डुपुत्राणामाचार्यमहतीं च मूं व्यूढां द्रुपदपुत्रेण तव शिष्येन धीमता.
Thank you. Also the translation, please.
O my teacher, behold the great army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupada.
Thank you, Nischala. So here we are seeing that Duryodhana is showing his diplomacy, where he is saying that Krishna is actually on Pandava's side, but still Duryodhana is somehow politically he's trying to act over here because he is diplomatically so good. Actually, it's not like Duryodhana doesn't know anything, doesn't know any dharma. He of course knows his dharma, but he always is using it for his diplomacy. He is not using it for in the right sense, for the righteousness. So here he points out that Drona's mistake, that is, he is saying Pashyaitan Panduputran Acharya Mahatim Chamum, means he's saying, I'm imparting all these secrets of military secrets. He's talking to his own guru, but the tone of voice that he's talking is not right. He's saying, you have imparted all the secrets, all the knowledge of the military arts to your friend's son, who is right now against you. Drishtadhyumna is actually the son of Drupada, and Drupada is coming as his very intimate friend. He taught him all the military arts. Now you have already taught him all the military arts. Look, he's against you now. So he's trying to be keeping him against, and this way he wants to ensure that, you know what, he's trying to alert him, and he's telling, even if I'm alerting, I don't want you to compromise on this war. He's saying, don't compromise and don't be lenient. So he's trying to arrange in such a way, he's so intelligent that, you know, he's trying to arrange everything in such a way that he's diplomatically putting it across to Dronacharya. You have already taught all the military arts, he's now against you, and you taught everything to your friend, now your friend's son is against you. So he's trying to be very, very diplomatically talking over there so that the war is actually towards his side. But let's see if it's going to be on his side. So Duryodhana, out of fear and diplomacy, he is described over here that he approaches Drona due to inner fear. So he's scared. Did you see how scared he is, right? Look his face. You see his eyes popping out. So he's very scared. And also he refers to the son Drupada and Drishtadyumna. So he's provoking. He's trying to provoke Dronacharya so that Dronacharya becomes angry and he tries to win the war for him. Now, okay, this has happened so many years ago in Mahabharata. How do I relate this to my real life? I don't know how I can relate to this to my current life. That you will ask me. So to explain that, you know, we also have many material attachments, and also we have insecurities, and we are always in unhappy, and we are always fearful and anxiety. How? Oh, I want this iPad, I want this video game, I want this kind of mobile phone, I want this kind of computer. This is what is our allurements that we have. And also, let me go shopping, so this is another allurement. And also we are like, oh, maybe if I don't have this, I think I will be insulted by my friends. So these are the things that we usually have in our mind. But is this really required, is the question. See, over here Krishna is towards Krishna, even Duryodhana is like that. Maybe I don't have something that they don't have it. Maybe I have something that they don't have it. These are the fearful insecurities that we also have in our life, which we should not have. All we should have is spirituality is the most important thing. So the key lesson, that's what we need to understand over here. And let's get back to the war once again. What happens after that? We have ominous results. This is another very important section. So Pandavas with confidence are explained over here. What is it saying? Who can recite the shloka over here? Harsha? Harsha, would you like to recite?
सा घोषाद्भुतराष्ट्राणां हृद्राणि वैदरात्या नभाश्चका कव्या tumulo Vridhanadanyam.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else want to recite? Sri Raga Gayatri. Okay, I don't see hearing. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, all of you, please raise your hands only if you know to chant the shloka, because I would only ask about chanting shlokas. So all of you, please lower your hands, or I will lower hands. You raise only if you know the shlokas, okay? Sri Raga, please can you recite the shloka?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So, Sha Gosho Dhartarashtranam Hridyani Vyadarayat Nabhaska Pritvam Chaiva Tumolo Bhanunadayan.
Thank you very much. So the blowing of these different conch shells became uproarious, and it was vibrating both the sky on earth. It shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. So it's saying that Pandava's confidence is explained over here. So when the conch shells were blown, it was shattering the hearts of the Dhritarashtra sons, and there is no heartbreaking on the other sides of Pandavas. So here, because the Pandavas and their confidence, Pandavas were confident. Why? Can anyone tell why Pandavas were so confident? Akshit. Akshit Srirangam.
Ma'am,
Yes, why were the Pandavas so confident that they will win the war?
ma'am, they were so confident because they they were they thought that they would win the war.
Yes.
I'm not
Why?
Okay, let's ask. someone.
Okay, let's ask someone else. Maybe Avani and Anshu.
They think they will win the war because they have confidence in them.
Yes. Why are they confident? You should have something to be confident, right? Why do they have confidence? There should be something with you that you're confident, right? You have.
Jagrati. Let's ask Jagrati.
Because they are strong.
Because God was their side.
Perfect. Hari bol. So wherever Krishna is next to you, whenever Krishna is next to you, automatically your confidence builds up. So if you are with Krishna and if you're saying Hare Krishna, I'm going down to you, I'm always doing whatever you want me to do, automatically the war is all won already. So this is how we need to think. So this clarifies that one will win the war only with confidence, only if Sri Krishna is with them. So this is clearly indicated, and also Srila Prabhupada is emphasizing over here, one who takes shelter of the Supreme Lord has nothing to fear. And in the midst of the greatest calamity also, even if you're in the middle of the greatest calamity, if you see over here, Pandavas have less number of people. Pandavas have a lot of, they have less number of people to be in the war with them, but still, even if you're in the greatest of the calamity, it's okay. So we will see how the omnious results, how they are going to win the war. What are the symbols over here? Lord Krishna's presence is the most important. So it's saying Jayastu Pandu Putra Nam Yesham. So this is coming in one of the shlokas, where as Rishikesha. Who is Rishikesha? Rishikesha is Krishna himself. So he is the director of senses. And also Madhava. Madhava means he is the husband of the fortune. So goddess of fortune, Bhagya Lakshmi is with him. So obviously, wherever Krishna is, Bhagya Lakshmi is with him. So if Bhagya Lakshmi is with them, fortune is behind you. So obviously you will win the war and you will be victorious. And the third sign, transcendental conch shell. So they had transcendental means. Anybody knows what is transcendental? What is the other meaning? Who can say what is transcendental? Let us ask Shashi. What is transcendental?
ట్రాన్సెండెంటల్ అంటే ఏంటి తెలుసా చెప్పు టీచర్ ఐ డోంట్ నో టీచర్
No problem. Anyone else? Charita.
Yes, ma'am.
What is transcendental?
Transcendental.
No problem. We will
Ma'am.
ask somebody. Mhm. If you know it, it's okay. If you don't know, it's okay. We have not taught yet. If you know it, I'm just asking. Paranika. Ishan. Okay, I'm going to lower all your hands so that we know who knows what is transcendental. Raise your hand if you know what is transcendental. Okay, we have Hitashri.
Ma'am, transcendental means the relating to a spiritualism.
Yes, it's kind of correct. Transcendental means it's spiritual, divine, divya, right? So they had transcendental conscious. Others didn't have it. Only some of them had it. And who is that? Krishna had, which is Panchajanya, and Arjuna had. That was called as Devadatta. So they did Shankhanath. When they did the Shankhanath, Krishna and Arjuna had transcendental conscious. They had divya conscious. When they do anything with the divya conscious, already they are victorious with that. and they had a divine chariot. So this was actually gifted by Agni Deva. So there was a war that was that Arjuna had helped Lord Agni Deva, and because of this war, Lord Agni Deva gave this gift of chariot to the Arjuna, and Arjuna had got this divya, where whoever sits on this particular chariot, they will be victorious. And also Hanumanji. Hanumanji was in the Kapidwaja. So Pandavas had a Kapidwaja. The Dwaja means Pataka, that is the flag. The flag that was there along with Arjuna was actually Kapidwaja. So Lord Hanuman was sitting on this flag and he was watching in the entire time. And also the venue, the place where they were doing this or the performing this, not performing actually, they were waging this war was actually Kurukshetra. It's a holy place. So Dharma will always win over there. And also shattering the heart. So when you're scared, automatically your hearts will be pumping more blood. So obviously your hearts are shattering. And also Bhima's pacifying conch shells, no chance of victory. So even though he was trying to, Bhishma Pitama was trying to use the conch shells on the other side, it still was just pacifying. It's not sounding very victorious. So here are the signs of victory, where Krishna, wherever Krishna is, the victory automatically follows him. And what are the key lessons that we need to learn over here? We need to take the shelter of the Supreme Lord. He is the Lord of all the Lords, and we have to take his shelter. And faith determines fearlessness in the greatest calamity. We saw how if we have faith in the scriptures, we will always be victorious because Krishna is with us. And we just have a couple of more shlokas and we'll be done. So here, who would like to recite the shloka? Okay, sorry, in the interest of time, we are just reciting it from here itself.
Arjuna Uvacha Senayorubayormadhye Ratham Stapayamechyuta Yavadetaniriksheham Yodhukamam Avastithan Karmaya Maya Saha Yodhavyam Asmin Ranasamudhyame.
Thank you very much. Arjuna said, "O fallible one, please draw my chariot between the two armies, so that I may see those present over here who desire to fight, and with whom I must contend in this great trial of arms." So he wants to now see, it's like there is a war that is already arranged, and Krishna is like, Arjuna is like, okay, I need to now get into the middle of the war zone and see who am I fighting with. So he wants to see what am I going to do now. So he's asking, Senayor Ubhayor Madhye Ratham Sthapayame. So please take me to the middle of the army. And so this becomes a very difficult situation for Arjuna, where Arjuna is over here. He's saying, why did Arjuna ask such a thing? Because Arjuna was forced to fight against his own wish because of the obstinate or stubbornness of Duryodhana, where Arjuna was not ready for this to begin with, but actually Duryodhana was not giving up his stubbornness at all. And also he was anxious. Arjuna was anxious. Why he was anxious? To see who were the leading men present with the desire to fight, and to please they all must be birds of the same feather. So if you see all of them, that is Kauravas and Pandavas, both the sides were all of the same clan. They were all coming from the same Kuru dynasty. So they are against each other, and also that's why Arjuna is not very happy about this. And also to see that, also that how to estimate that the strength. Let me see by going in between this, Ubhayor Madhya, Senayor Ubhayor Madhya. He wants to go to the middle of the battlefield to see on both the sides how many people are around and how I can, win this battle. So here it's saying infallible one, which means who never fails. A person who never fails. Who is infallible one? That's Krishna. He never fails. He never fails, and also he's also called as Achyuta, which means Achyuta means he never fails. And also Krishna is called as Bhakta Vatsala. If you see over here, Krishna so mercifully, he has taken the position of a charioteer. He's become a charioteer for Arjuna. Even though he is the supreme lord, he is the charioteer. And also Krishna is the Rishikesha. So here there is a turning point that we are seeing in this shloka. What is that turning point? Arjuna is all of a sudden becoming very compassionate to his relatives. He has relatives on his other side who has Bhishma and all his relatives, all his brothers. And also he's seeing, even if I win this war, I won't be enjoying anything. How am I going to enjoy this? Even if I win this war, at the end of the day, I won't have the other side of my family members. How will I enjoy alone? He's thinking. And also he's thinking, he's becoming fearful of the sinful reactions. He's thinking that, if I kill all of my relatives, then all the women of the family will be losing their husbands. And when they lose their husbands, obviously there will be destruction of family traditions. So if the husbands are not there of so many wives, then there will be destruction of family traditions. And also because of this, he is having indecision. The indecision part will come in the second chapter that we will see ahead. So here he is fearful of so many things. That's why there is a turning point in the war. So these are the 5 arguments that Arjuna is keeping. The other argument will come in the second chapter. So just to summarize what we learned today, we learned 5 different concepts. What? First, Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana, how they were viewing the armies. There were 3 people viewing the armies. One is Dhritarashtra was viewing the army. Second, we had Duryodhana who was viewing the army. And now we had Arjuna who told, take me to the middle of the war zone. So we had 3 important people who were viewing the army in 3 different ways. Dhritarashtra curdled, that is, he separated the milk and the water. So he told Kurukshetra, that is Kuru kingdom and Pandavas, what are they doing? So he separated milk and the curd there. So that's the first one. Second one, Arjuna was viewing so many points over here. He was getting compassion, he was feeling loss of enjoyment, he was fearful, he was feeling destruction of family, he was viewing it differently, he was compassionate about his relatives. And the third one, if you remember, we had Duryodhana. He was trying to be very diplomatic. He was diplomatic and he was approaching Drona. He was like, oh, you know what? You have done this kind of a service to your friend, and your friend is now having another child, that is Drishtadyumna, who is against you. So you have already taught him all your skills. Now he's referring to the Drupada's son who is he's provoking Drona. So this is the second. Third is Dhritarashtra you saw. So, and the second part we saw how we have omnious results. That is how Krishna, wherever Krishna is, there will be victory. And the third one we saw uncertainty of the war. And last one we saw how Arjuna was bewildered and there is a turning point in the war. This is the entire chapter. All of you can unmute yourself and you can chant, because we've completed the first chapter. Thank you very much all for
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare
Krishna, everyone. Thank you very much all for patiently listening. And I'll just stop sharing, and then now we can ask questions. I'm going to lower all your hands. We will answer all your questions. If I'm unable to answer the questions today, I will log in early tomorrow. All of you can log in 30 minutes early. We will take all your questions. For 15 minutes we will take questions, and also we will do revision. So don't feel bad if I'm not answering all the questions, because there is a class that goes after this live. So we will be closing in 20 minutes. If at all I'm not answering any questions, please log in tomorrow 15 minutes prior to the class. We will take all your questions.